What's up, everybody? We are here with another episode of Flow. We are at Massawa in Harlem at the corner of 121st Street. You know, the pandemic has sort of made us shift our format a little bit, but I am so happy to be back in person. And today's guest is none other than Associate Professor at Columbia University, Dr. Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz, back for a proper Flow episode, non-pandemic related, in person. So I can't wait to get in here and meet up with her so you guys can see yet another incredible episode. Let's go. Yoli, it is so good to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you for coming back.
Amazing.
I mean, we had to do a proper episode. I mean, through Zoom, it's just not the same. Dr. Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz, Associate Professor at Columbia University, the author of Love from the Vortex, and the soon to be released Peace Chronicles. And if anybody needs peace right now, it is me. I'm gonna speak for the I. It is me and the world. And so I'm so excited to get into the conversation today and to see you. You know, as we're starting.
And this is the first time we met.
The first time we met.
How amazing is that? That when we did our first episode, when Love from the Vortex shortly came out, and thank you for the graciousness of having me on. I sit here in a space of gratitude.
You know, I can't help, even though physically this might have been the first time we met, our spirits have been connected.
Amen.
For a very long time.
I mean,
I don't even know how long it goes back.
We gotta thank Dr. Angel Acosta for that.
Angel, if you're watching, thank you. I need to have you on the show.
Yes, immediately.
So I'm thinking about the work that I do, you know, with Flow and on the show. You start to feel duty bound to do the work because of those around you, you know, that you love and care about. You know, and I feel like so much of your work has been that, you know, especially, I mean, you know, from the work you do around racial literacy and the literacy of Black boys who go on to become Black men, if they're blessed.
Yes, we need to change that. Because everybody deserves to live.
Everybody deserves to live, especially, you know, thinking about your creative work with your poetry, you know, both from Love from the Vortex and now moving into the Peace Chronicles. That is what you give.
Wow, Durell, I didn't think about it that way because, you know, I'm just trying to heal. So for you to say to me, or to even look at that as a gift, that's the blessing to me, right? Because I literally am trying to write and free and heal myself. And I was in the vortex and I was documenting it and trying to write myself out of it, which I did. And it was natural that the peace then came. Actually, the Peace Chronicles picks up from the last lover in the vortex, Tyrone, with a huge betrayal that I found out that he had been seeing someone that I had mentored, someone that I'd known for 10 years. And what was so painful about everything, Durell, is that, you know, he had gotten in a very serious accident. He's still convalescing a year and a half later. He was hit by an 18-wheeler at work. I actually found out about his accident through the person that he was seeing, because that's how small the world is. And also when you cultivate a particular energy, you can pull, I think you pull information and knowledge towards you that you need to know. And so I found out through her. So while I'm going through all of this pain, because I thought we were doing okay, I'm so upset flying back from Texas, needing to see him. And I couldn't even be angry because I was so busy praying that he would survive. And so naturally, I had to write about all of those complex emotions, and I just started writing. And that's the Peace Chronicles. I never intended to write Love from the Vortex. I never intended to write the Peace Chronicles. This is me writing to deal with my emotions, my sadness, my fear, my feelings of betrayal, my feelings of being played. And so the Peace Chronicles came out of that. So the first chapter is called Residual Detachments, and just kind of the things that were lingering from the vortex that I need to detach from. The second chapter, I really reconcile a lot with my father. My father has been passed now for about 12 years. And so there are 3 poems that talk about my father. The third chapter is really, it's called Peacemaking. It is my peace. It is me writing through all of this, Durell, and just documenting that, yes, I do have peace in my life. And the fourth chapter is called Meta Poems. So if you meditate, or you're familiar with meditation, and you say, I share my meta with you, that means I share my peace with you. So these are small poems, very similar to the Vipassana poems in Love from the Vortex. These are poems of me sharing my peace with the reader.
Following up on Love from the Vortex, it only makes sense to me and to the universe that the follow-up to that would be the Peace Chronicles, right? So we have love, and now what we need is peace. You know, I always seal all of my prayers with in peace, and I'm bringing in peace, right, among everything else, and not in like the, you know, the like the pageant contest way, you know, world peace, but serious peace and what that means. How do we get there? especially thinking about loving people through hurt and the power of forgiveness.
Well, it has to be self-forgiveness first. And I know you know that, because I know where you are in your life. But when you go through a process like that, what people need to understand is that's actually very life-changing, because you have to face imposter syndrome. You have to face your past selves that told you, you can't do this. What do you need a doctorate for? Like, what are you going for? So all those voices in the head, and to some extent, that is an opportunity to face yourself and to be at peace with yourself, to love yourself, and to love yourself enough to make this accomplishment, right? And to say, this is something I committed to, and I'm going to stick to it all the way through. And so for me, that's really what a doctorate represents. It is a milestone. It is a commitment to the self. And so when you are going through, let's say something like that, or a life-changing experience, having a child, different things, you have to reconcile with who you are. You have to face yourself, and I think you have to be at peace with yourself. When you're able to do that, you are more open to reconciling with others, to being at peace with others, even if peace means to let someone go. So that's why I say I'm no guru, but I do know what it is to deal with self-loathing in a relationship, to not love myself enough, and then to finally realize that I need to love myself. And once I have that self-love, I'm good.
So I want to ask you a question about sort of like mentorship.
Yes.
What does it feel like for you when you see that light bulb go off in a student?
Well, for me, teaching is a spiritual act, and teaching is also a loving act. I'm trying to like live that life of love and being driven by the spirit. So when a student gets it, and gets it could mean different things. They get things about racism, they get things about homophobia, like they get, no, that's not looking at someone fully human. That excites me. It also excites me when they get to start uncovering who they are. It's almost like I cannot describe it. It's a visceral feeling to know that my work is not in vain, to know that I'm serving humanity, because that's what teaching is for me. You know, it's service. I'm not saying I'm the humanity police, but I do feel like my calling is to get people to interrupt themselves when they're thinking and taking these kinds of actions towards people. And as they do that interruption, to get to know themselves in a more fuller way. And that does require going deep into how you were raised, some of the people that loved you most, recognizing that they're racist or sexist or homophobes, and still love them, but recognize that the things that they taught you, there can be a separation. You don't have to just take everything in that they said because you love them. So I feel like that's my work. And when people get what I'm trying to do, it's the best feeling in the world. There's so much unlearning, Durell, that we have to do. And this is what I love about Flow, your show. It gives us an opportunity to take the classroom, right, outside of the physical building and have us begin to unlearn and relearn the things that are going to make us healthy. And that's the one thing coming out of this pandemic, or living in this pandemic in the past year, I'm grateful to see how Black folks have been raising their consciousness. We still have a ways to go, because remember, we've been 400 years deep on this thing. So we gotta also be patient with ourselves, but understand that there is unlearning in process. And for every episode of Flow, for every episode of whatever it is that Chris Emdin does, or Bettina Love, or Goldie Muhammad, that is part of the unlearning that we seek to do with our people. And it is not going in vain. So I thank you for your time and your team of dedicating, to doing a show like this. Because 1, 2, 3, 500, whoever listens to it, I want to believe that they're getting the message that they need. So thank you.
I mean, thank you. And you said it earlier, it's individual, but then it is also collective.
Yes.
And if anybody understands that piece, that is why we create.
Black feminist theory, which is what drives much of what I do, and I want to give a shout out to Queen Cynthia Dillard, who talks about and darkened feminisms. So many amazing Black feminists: Patricia Collins, Sylvia Winter, Bell Hooks. But there's a principle in Black feminist thought that talks about collective knowledge. And that although Black women, yes, we each have our individual nuances and then various ethnicities, sexual orientations, all of the beautiful social markers that make us unique. But one thing is when we come together, when we pull together our knowledge, there's no stop. In the words of Frankie Beverly and Mays, ain't no stopping us now. We actually need each other. We need that collective thinking and spirit in order to move our communities forward. So I thank you for kind of bringing out that collectivity. And so Archaeology of the Self, while it is very personal, it is also co-constructed and done in community. That is absolutely a nod to Black feminist thinking and how I've been influenced by Black feminist theorists.
So we're in these collective spaces. My vision of liberation may possibly be different from yours. How do we start to freedom dream collectively?
In some ways, I feel you have the answer already in your question. And
because I've read your book.
But you know what it is, brother? We have to talk with one another. We have to love one another. And the way that we maybe judge and separate ourselves by color, by sexuality, by religion, we have been poisoned by it. We got to be honest about how we're leaving out trans sisters and brothers. We got to be honest about the colorism. We have to be honest about all these, the poison that has been infused in us, and heal from it. When we begin to collectively heal, and we are, Durell, make no mistake, we are, then you will begin to see a different type of coalition. You'll begin to see a different type of thinking. And I'm not talking about groupthink. I'm talking about an ethos of seeing the humanity of your brother and your sister. And I mean that collectively, trans brothers and sisters, gay brothers and sisters. We begin to see each other differently. I think it's happening, but remember, we've been fractured for 400 years. It may not happen in our lifetime, but if we can lay down the Black print and leave the legacy for the children that are to come, I think they'll take up the work. And part of freedom dreaming for me is having faith in the generations that are to come to continue this work.
How do you love from a distance? How do you love from
that's
a
how I
distance?
learned with Tyrone. When, do I still love him? Sure, I still care about him. But did he hurt me? Shit, yes. He hurt me deeply. Do I want him to heal and be whole? Absolutely. That's how you love from a distance.
I think that idea of being able to let it go and release it is so important. That's also equally a part of healing. I have to be completely honest with you. And I remember when we were talking about Love from the Vortex on, the first time I had you on Flow, you were saying that some people who have read it told you that it helped them get through the pandemic.
Oh my God, yes.
Your work has helped me not only get through the pandemic, it has helped me get through my doctoral journey. It is helping me get through my life as an entrepreneur. It is helping me get through my time as an educator.
Wow.
I think the power of love is still highly underestimated.
Wow.
And somehow you have tapped into that as the root of healing, which it is. So maybe for someone who might be having a hard time loving themselves or loving someone else. How do we begin?
Wow. Part of self-love is self-knowledge. Like, you have to know yourself. You have to know those spaces where you don't love yourself, which is what Love from the Vortex was for me. Making it plain in the spaces where I was not loving me. And then claiming that love, right? So there's some self-work, I have to tell you. There is self-work that we have to do. So it really is almost like a pilot test to love the self first, to engage in that way of thinking and feeling and being, so that it's not so foreign for you to give it to someone else. Engage with the self. Know you before you dare to enter a relationship with someone else or a deep friendship.
To plug some of your work a little bit more, let's go back to like the archaeology of self.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the genesis of where those workshops have come from.
Yeah.
And then some of the like success stories that you've heard as a result of doing some of these workshops.
Quite simply, the archaeology of the self is doing a deep self excavation. You know, like archaeologists excavate the land to try to get that precious artifact. That precious artifact for me in archaeology of the self is the self-knowledge. So to do the excavation, specifically when I talk to teachers around their racial bias, around Islamophobia, around homophobia, around racism, implicit bias. And what I ask is that they not just do the excavation, but that they remove it and then replace it with critical love. And critical love is one of the components of racial literacy development. What I ask through Arc of Self theory is that we take the courage, we put in action the courage to know those things that we've buried very deep around race, around class, around all of those social markers. I want us to excavate it, because when you bring stuff to light, so I want it to be an education of the self, an excavation of those things that keep us from being in our full human selves. And if we're believing that we are better than someone else because of our sexual orientation, our religion, our so-called race and gender, that's misguided. I want people to do that kind of deep self-work and ultimately get to their full humanity.
When I think about abolition, I think about Harriet Tubman. I think about the Underground Railroad. Along the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman needed a lot of accomplices and co-conspirators and able to carry out the mission. Now, everybody wasn't black along the Underground Railroad.
That's right.
How do we harness the power of discernment to realize an accomplice and a co-conspirator, a true accomplice and co-conspirator, when we see one?
Mm-hmm. They will reveal themselves. That's the first thing. All you have to do is watch. Sometimes, Durell, we need to not so much pay attention to what people say, but what people do. And in their actions, over time, they will reveal who they are. They will reveal that they are a co-conspirator of the movement towards humanity, or if they were performing. Time will tell.
Thank you so much for coming on. Not once. I've been blessed with your presence.
I'm blessed with you.
I've been blessed with your presence on the show, not just once, but twice. You know, we had to do a proper episode in person. It was better for me the second time around.
Second time around. Hey, Shalimar, let's get it. Oh, I feel so blessed. Thank you. It has been a joy. I can talk to you over and over. Let it be a third, a fourth, and a fifth time. Thank you for flow. Thank you for being you. Thank you for believing in our humanity. Because that's really what this show is about, trying to reach us to a level of consciousness that some of us may not have reached yet. So thank you for flow.
Thank you. Thank you for your light.